Next on the news.
This escalating violence, which is resulting in civilian deaths, including children, is totally unacceptable.
The UN Secretary General says enough is enough at a special Security Council meeting called about the growing global threat from Russia.
My heart breaks with your heart.
And Bishop Brennan prays for peace in Ukraine at a special mass at Guardian Angel Church as people across the diocese scramble to help. Pope Francis greets pilgrims in St. Peter's Square, speaking Ukrainian and condemning the Russian invasion during his Sunday Angelus.
What a mighty God we serve.
And at St. Michael, St. Malachi Church, a special mass marking the end of Black History Month. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. The UN holds an emergency meeting in the wake of the escalating threats from Vladimir Putin, the Secretary General, with harsh words for Russia's attacks on Ukraine. It's just one of the many diplomatic, political, financial, military, and humanitarian developments. Emily Schmidt reports.
It took this Ukrainian disaster to spark a world diplomacy not seen for 40 years.
The fighting in Ukraine must stop.
The UN General Assembly held an emergency meeting for the first time since 1982, condemning Russia's attacks and supporting Ukraine's sovereignty, calling for peace.
For the first time since the United Nations was born, there is a full-fledged war in the center of Europe.
War images emerged from all over the country. Attacks that appeared to be on a section of Kharkiv. Outside Kiev, signs of losses for Russia. Ukrainians fighting, inspired by their president's rallying calls.
He is our president, he is our leader, he is leader of the armed forces of Ukraine.
More fallout. Moscow's stock exchange closed Monday when economic sanctions caused the ruble to lose nearly a third of its value. Russia closed its airspace to airlines from 36 countries, and Ukraine and Russia held talks in Belarus amid fears troops from Belarus could support Russia. So much remarkable movement, including this. The UN now estimates more than 500,000 people have fled Ukraine, seeking safety, with their homeland very much still in danger. Emily Schmidt, Currents News.
And according to the Ukrainian Border Control Service, more than 120,000 people have fled the country in the past 24 hours. That number is more than double what the number of daily crossings was compared to before the invasion. In a tweet, the service reported an average of 50,000 people crossed the border each day before the war. This, as a Western official says, Russia is actually behind schedule in the invasion. That setback, a failure on the first day to destroy Ukraine's air defenses. Reportedly, Russia has about half the forces it massed on Ukraine's borders forward and operating. Earlier Monday, a U.S. defense official said they believe Russia has committed nearly 75% of its military power to the task. The U.S. official says they are worried about the risks that a lack of Russian progress may bring. New York City is home to the largest Ukrainian population in the United States. Parishes across the Diocese of Brooklyn are standing in solidarity with the people of Ukraine and lifting their voices in prayer for peace and a resolution to the ongoing conflict. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more on how the diocese is taking action.
Money and supplies can be sent. Voices of support can be heard. But for Ukrainians living in the Diocese of Brooklyn, right now, the most powerful defense in this fight is prayer. This past weekend, people gathered at Guardian Angel Church in Brighton Beach for a mass of solidarity with the people of Ukraine.
It's really great. Hold the word, answer for that. And have a support.
Father Sergei Emmanuel is trying to be strong for his parish community. But like so many of them, he too is worried about his family and trying desperately to get some of them over the border into Poland.
Old men, they are crying, but I try to not cry.
His only comfort is knowing the world is standing with his people, especially his shepherd, Bishop Robert Brennan.
My heart breaks with your heart, but we are filled with that same sense of hope. And that hope comes to us because of Jesus Christ.
On Sunday, parishioners at Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Williamsburg marched to Holy Ghost Ukrainian Church to express their unity. Though demonstrations are a display of solidarity, people like Veronica Giacchi want to do more.
I should be there. I should be there and fight with everybody. If I could, I would go now. I should be there.
In anticipation of the Russian invasion, Veronica took a first aid class, expecting to go back to Ukraine and help defend her country. But now she's left with no choice but to stand by her family from 5,000 miles away.
She's saying, I'm gonna die before I become a slave. I'm not gonna do it.
Around the globe and in the Diocese of Brooklyn, the prayers for peace continue. And so does the hope. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Guardian Angel Church is collecting money along with emergency and medical supplies. Anything from bandages to air mattresses can be dropped off at the parish, which is located at 2978 Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn. And those are supplies the Ukrainian people can use. Many are fleeing their country, leaving their entire lives behind, not knowing if they'll ever return. Traveling for days in the cold to get to Poland. Tens of thousands are still on the Ukrainian side of the border. Little hands clutch bigger ones that would give anything just to keep them safe. Sleepy, tiny, cold faces in tired arms. The hum of voices you would expect from the number of people that are here, it doesn't exist. It's as if the shock and disbelief has brought with it an odd silence. It's mostly women and children here. Men aged 18 to 60 are not allowed to leave. The people here had to say goodbye to husbands, brothers, and fathers.
I think that it was the most awful thing to say. Yes.
She was crying.
And then there is the sheer hell of getting here, walking for hours, waiting in some cases for days out in the bitter cold, hungry, thirsty. Ajmal and his family fled Afghanistan last May, getting asylum in Ukraine. His 7-year-old daughter barely made it here.
It's very, very cold, and my daughter become too shocked. We calling, she not answer. And finally we tried to contact with the ambulance. We found the ambulance, the doctor comes, just check him. And after that they gave us a chance.
You must have been so
scared. To go the first.
She clutches one of the donated stuffed animals, replacing a similar one she left behind. But who is going to give her the rest of her life back?
But I don't know with the unknown future.
At least this time, unlike in years past, Europe is welcoming refugees. There is a massive, inhumane backlog on the Ukrainian side. But once finally here in Poland, an army of volunteers. At the train station, a 7-year-old hugs his mother, hiding his face. He's not used to the crowds. It's all scary and confusing. They've been waiting 2 days here. Her mother is in Kiev. It's tearing her apart, but at least her husband, who is not Ukrainian, is out here with her. For how do you say goodbye to the love of your life, the father of your children? This woman is not the only one in tears. Others as well, understandably not wanting to talk because they say it makes them cry too much. Students in the country are stepping up to help with the growing refugee crisis. Ukrainian Catholic University students coordinating donations of food and medical supplies for soldiers and displaced people. Currently, they have around 3,000 volunteers actively trying to place refugees in 80 different locations. The school is also fighting the waves of misinformation being circulated online. The strong right arm of the church, the Knights of Columbus, giving $1 million to Ukrainian refugees. The Catholic Fraternal Organization also starting a Ukraine Solidarity Fund, which will provide temporary shelter, food, medical supplies, and other necessities to displaced people. The Knights have promised to match every dollar up to $500,000. To donate to the Knights Fund or to find other organizations who are trying to help the people of Ukraine, just go to thetablet.org/where-to-give to help Ukraine. During the Sunday Angelus, Pope Francis greeted the pilgrims in St. Peter's Square speaking Ukrainian. In his first speech after the invasion, the Pope avoided mentioning Russia but clearly condemned the war. And the Holy Father said it's urgent to open humanitarian corridors for those fleeing the country. Meanwhile, masses are still going on in Ukraine as priests in the country are sent to bomb shelters to celebrate the liturgy. The leader of the Ukrainian Catholic Church sending that order to spiritual fathers on Sunday after citizens in Kiev were unable to attend Mass due to a government-mandated curfew. Archbishop Sviatoslav Shevchuk even asked for a special Mass intention.
Пожертвувати святе причастя за наших воїнів. В їхніх руках є сьогодні наше життя. Пожертвуйте його за тих, які сьогодні є поранені, які сьогодні є знедолені, які сьогодні є в дорогах біженців цієї кривавої війни в Україні.
The Archbishop is also meeting the people where they are. During the first days of the invasion, he took shelter with these people under the Cathedral of the Resurrection in Kiev. We have a lot more news to get to. On this last day of Black History Month, we'll celebrate the 100th birthday of the first African-American church in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Plus, we'll take you to East New York, where Catholic students celebrated Black history through dance, poetry, and fashion. And students will get to see each other's smiles again in class. We'll tell you when they can ditch the masks when we come back.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
The parish at St. Peter Claver Church in Bedford-Stuyvesant marking the end of its 100th anniversary year with a special blessing from Brooklyn's Bishop Robert Brennan. The special Mass commemorated the tremendous history at the church, which was the first African-American church in the diocese, as well as its bright future ahead. And kicking off that bright future, Bishop Brennan celebrated Sunday Mass there, blessing the parish's newly renovated shrine along with their new organ console and choir pews.
What a mighty God we serve.
The festivities continued at St. Michael's St. Malachy Church. The parish there marked the end of Black History Month, honoring Black holy men and women. Students from Salve Regina Catholic Academy and the church's young adult groups led the celebration, using song, dance, and poetry to highlight historic Black Catholics like Blessed Pierre Toussaint and Sister Thea Bowman. It's a celebration 14 years in the making. America's Black Holocaust Museum in Milwaukee has finally reopened its doors to the public over the weekend. Kent Wainscott was there and shows us the large crowd who were among the first to walk through the museum's doors.
1, 2, 3.
With that cut, years of anticipation ended and a new era in Bronzeville began. The rebirth of America's Black Holocaust Museum, opening its doors to the public for the first time in 14 years.
I rode past here for a month saying I can't wait till the 25th. I can't wait.
Carol Cole was among the first visitors through the doors, sharing the history with her 9-year-old daughter, Devana.
This is the way that she'll always be able to see it forever. You know, she'll always be able to come here and witness it, bringing her children and their children.
This would have been the 108th birthday of the museum's founder, Dr. James Cameron. As a teenager, he became the only known survivor of a lynching. Later went on to educate and inspire generations of others. His son Virgil was here to celebrate the reopening.
We did it, and thank you so much.
First-day visitors waited in line before finding themselves captivated by the powerful exhibits.
It's very important to know your history and to where you came from and how to move forward.
I think the spirit of Dr. James Cameron, you can feel it throughout the entire museum.
And the museum's president reflected on both its past and its future.
We're finally here. This day is here.
Did you ever have any doubts that you would get to this point?
No, I never had any doubts. And more importantly, we will never close these doors again.
That was Kent Wainscott reporting. The museum was only able to reopen its doors thanks to a $10 million gift from an anonymous donor. That donation will also allow the museum to expand. Now to the latest on mask mandates in New York. Governor Kathy Hochul says she needs more information to make a decision on lifting the state's remaining mask mandates, which are still in place on public transportation and in hospitals and nursing homes. This comes after she announced she was lifting statewide mask requirements in schools on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Mayor Eric Adams says he's considering lifting vaccine mandates on restaurants, bars, and theaters next Monday if infections and hospitalizations continue on a downward trend. Adams also said he will decide this week if the indoor mask mandate for public schools will be lifted. The Diocese of Brooklyn says for all of its Catholic academies and parish schools, effective this Wednesday, face coverings will be recommended but not required. It will be an individual choice for school employees and parents of all students. But students in city-funded pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 programs must continue to wear masks as required by the Department of Education. In a letter going out to all parents of students, the diocese says it will continue to adapt to COVID-19 mitigation strategies, but its first concern is the safety of all students, and so it will continue other health practices in classrooms, including physical distancing, hand washing, ventilation, cleaning, and disinfection. Plus, it will continue to urge students and employees to stay home when sick and to get tested. A worrying development in the invasion of Ukraine. Satellite images now showing a Russian convoy reaching the outskirts of the capital city of Kiev. The grouping consists of armored vehicles, tanks, towed artillery, and other logistical vehicles. According to a Pentagon spokesperson, Russian forces still remain outside of the city center. This as nervous residents of the capital city venture out for the first time following a government lockdown that ended Monday morning. Lines for grocery stores going down the street, people waiting hours for the basic necessities such as food and water. The shelves inside already fairly bare even in the early morning hours, but people are calm as they grab only what they need. Still, for most of the day, the streets of Kiev are deserted as people living there brace for the worst. Alex Marquardt is there with a surreal tour of the once bustling capital city.
Ukraine's capital is bracing for the worst. Checkpoints with armed forces, sandbags stacked in front of the mayor's office in central Kiev.
There are no Russian forces in Kiev right now, according to the mayor, but there have been battles against them. And the mayor says that large groups of Russian saboteurs were destroyed overnight.
In the physical heart of Ukraine's 2014 revolution, the Maidan, the streets are deserted.
And it was exactly here 8 years ago that Ukrainian citizens rose up against a pro-Russian government, a pro-Russian president, and ousted him. And that is something that President Putin has complained about for years. Now, his own forces are descending on this city, encircling it in order to try to topple this government and replace the president with a puppet who would answer to President Putin.
Now, 4 days into this Russian invasion, there is mounting evidence of Russia's attempt to encircle this city, fighting in every direction around, plumes of smoke marking the areas of the most intense fighting. Living in this city these days is not for the faint-hearted. While we're out, right on cue, another deep boom breaks through the silence. Below the Maidan, in the tunnels of the city's metro, which also act as bomb shelters, the arteries of the city are also deserted, a pinging only adding to the eeriness. Kiev has held strong for longer than some of the more dire predictions, which saw it falling within 24 to 48 hours. Optimism has grown with the Russians' inability to take any real control here, but everyone knows it is far too soon for any confidence.
That was Alex Marquardt reporting. Now to Wall Street, where it was a volatile day because of the invasion. Stocks ended up split at the close as investors monitored all the developments in Russia and Ukraine, including the new sanctions from the U.S. and its allies. The Dow slipped almost 170 points. The S&P also closed down about 16 points, but the Nasdaq rallied late, ending with a gain of 36 points. Still to come on Currents News, the images are everywhere and they are scary. We'll share some expert tips on how to talk to your children about what's happening in Ukraine. Plus, for the first time in history, Michelangelo's 3 Pietas are on display together for the public to see. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. The gruesome sights of war. As news continues to develop on the invasion of Ukraine, more images are coming in showing vehicles destroyed and buildings being decimated by shelling. This as hundreds of thousands rush to escape the country, people making the harrowing journey to the border, filling up shelters in Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, and so much more. All of this would be distressing to anyone watching, but what about our kids at home? How do you even begin to explain what's happening in Ukraine? Mandy Gaither talks to a pediatric psychologist about how to do just that.
The images are scary for anyone, but the war in Ukraine may cause worry and even fear in small children who see or hear about the unrest. When talking to them, keep it straightforward, says Cleveland Clinic pediatric psychologist Vanessa Jensen.
It's far away, and that's something that grown-ups do. Let the grown-ups take care of this right now. We get to take care of you, and then we'll make sure the adults take care of that. So sometimes you just need to simplify it.
Jensen says kids of any age can be bothered by what they're seeing. The images can show up in nightmares and night terrors. She says it's a good idea to monitor what children see and guard against showing disturbing images to younger children. If a child has seen something upsetting, Jensen says to ask lots of questions to gauge what they know and how they feel.
If you see things or hear things that either you wonder about or that just are kind of scary, let's talk about it. Help them normalize those thoughts. It's okay to feel kind of scared that this is happening in our world.
If a child is feeling unsafe, Jensen says it might help to show them Ukraine on a map so they see the fighting is far away. No matter your child's age, she says all children need extra support and reassurance from their parents right now. I'm Mandy Gaither.
And stay with Currents News for continuing coverage of the invasion of Ukraine. You can also go to our website, currentsny.tv and thetablet.org for more updates and stories. They have been admired the world over as exquisite depictions of maternal grief. Now, for the first time in history, Michelangelo's 3 Pietas have been united in a unique exhibit spanning 3 major Italian cities. Claudia Torres is in Rome with the details.
For the first time in history, Michelangelo's 3 Pietas are coming together in 3 cities, Florence, Milan, and Rome, to reflect upon the genius of this extraordinary artist in 3 places that safeguard this unique and extraordinary legacy.
They are the Vatican Pietà, which is housed in St. Peter's Basilica, the Bandini Pietà, and the Rondanini Pietà.
The public has the chance to draw close, contemplate, and even study Michelangelo's 3 Pietas, all 3 sculpted by the artist in Rome.
They are key works of his activity, but above all expressions of his spirituality and artistic universality, especially regarding a profound and key theme of the Christian faith, the Pietà, the death of the son and the passion of the mother in this tragic moment. The goal of the exposition, which will be accessible until August 1st, is to show visitors the evolution of Michelangelo's art. It's a joint effort including contributions from the Vatican museums, the Opera del Duomo Museum, the Museo Novecento in Florence, and the Castello Sforzesco in Milan.
That was Claudia Torres reporting. After the Florence exhibition comes to an end, the 3 works will go on display during the autumn in Milan. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.